Welcome everybody to another episode of Porchlight TV. We have Jennifer Carnes. I hope I pronounced that correctly with us today. Jennifer is a brand expert, but I'm going to let her actually explain to you what she does, her company, a little introduction. So Jennifer, if you want to introduce yourself, tell everybody kind of what you do, what you're up to, and we'll go from there.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Tracy. Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer. So I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm also the founder of Brand Launch Love, where I empower visionary entrepreneurs with the tools, the know-how, and the confidence to launch and build epic brands and profitable businesses. I'm also the host of the B Word Show, which is kind of like a daily dose of everything sort of brand development and launch strategy. You can find that on the business page. And I'm also the creator of the Build an Epic Brand course.
Well, I mean, as you're probably fully aware, I mean, branding in the real estate industry is so important. Can you give me some sort of key I guess tips, so to say, like why is branding beneficial to our real estate industry?
Branding is critical really for any business, especially if you have an industry where you really need to stand out. In your industry, obviously you're going to have all different kinds of competitors, but also even within, the same firm or agency that you may work with, the competition can be quite stiff. So it's really, and kind of like how Seth Godin said it, really sort of best, you have to be remarkable, you have to stand out, you have to be a purple cow, right? So you can't be a purple cow, if you're wearing the same colors as everybody else walking down the street, right?
That's right.
Or if you're saying the same thing. So it's kind of the same thing. And I think not only it's obviously important to stand out, but it's also really, really important. And again, especially kind of, in your particular industry, to build your own business. You need to have your own brand. If you have your own brand, that goes with you wherever you go. That's yours. Nobody can take it away from you. I know you probably have the same sort of opinion. So that's yours. That's your business that you've built. You can actually create an entire ecosystem of different products. You can have your own products and services that are aligned maybe with different, with being the realtor or, whatever agency or whatever that maybe you would work with. So it's looking at the bigger picture and going, right, this is my business. I'm going to create something that's about, me having longevity and growth and stability. And that's really what creating a brand will give you.
Yeah. And I'm just going to go back to that a second and kind of talk about a real life story. Talking about like kind of standing out and doing your own thing. I was with our company. We were branded with a franchise. It was called Sutton Group. And probably, maybe 10, 15 years into it, the office decided to change franchises. And I'm in Canada, so we changed from Sutton Group to Royal LePage, which, completely, like I had to redo everything. I had to redo all my business cards, all my yard signs, all, letterhead, all that kind of stuff. And that's when I made the decision that, I am not going to go under somebody's umbrella and, use their colors and use their branding. I want to do my own things to prevent this from happening again, because obviously we didn't have control as to what our office was doing. So, and now we haven't had another franchise change, but I'm able to stand out on my own, and it's so important. And I was just wondering, can you talk a little bit, like, you talked about branding being your ecosystem, like, what exactly is branding? Like, is it, we talked briefly, you and I, about like colors and all of that. So I'll let you kind of take over and maybe
your brand is really the whole cornerstone, the whole foundation of your entire business, right? So if you can imagine, say you're going to a networking event, right, Tracy? Okay, and you walk into the room. At that moment, you're your brand. So your brand is really every single touch point that anybody comes into contact with. It's your products, your service, your voice, what you say, how you say it, your website, your business card, the outfit that you wear. So if you're walking into a room, of course, people are going to see the visual, element of, right, the clothes you have on, your hair, what you look like, etc., etc. They're going to hear the verbal element of that, which is your voice and the words that you use, the sentence structure, the influx in your voice, things of this nature as well. But it goes deeper than that, right? So it's the impact that you make. So it's really, if you were to kind of sum it up in one sort of succinct, I guess, sort of sentence, would be a brand is really how it makes people think and feel and what they say about you. And it's really what they say about you when you leave the room, because I'm sure you've been to networking events where you've gone in and oh yes, everybody's lovely and nice, aren't they?
Yeah.
But it's what they say about you when you actually aren't there. So
yes.
That's what a brand is, and it's everywhere. And one of the things I always tell people is whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter whether you like it. You have a brand, right? So you need to make it work for you and not against you. Because if you're not aware and you're not taking advantage of the fact that you have this brand, it is very much working against you, unfortunately. And one of the biggest problems that people would have would be what we would call misalignment, right? So misalignment happens when, so imagine you walk into a room, and like you were saying with the situation where you had, the rebranding really within the agency that you were with. So imagine if you walked in with that business card one day and gave it to somebody, and you had a different one that had different colors on it and a different name, and completely different person walking in, and all these different things, and nothing really kind of mixed. That's not going to make people trust you. It's just going to confuse people. And if they don't trust you and you confuse them, that's it. You've lost them right away. So, it's really definitely, very, very, very important. And like I said, it's, really is the whole cornerstone of your business, and I know you had mentioned ecosystems, and, if you think of your ecosystem, that, like I said, it isn't necessarily just about that one product or that one service, but it's looking at it as a whole, what you can create. So if you create your own brand, say, for instance, take yourself, maybe you want to have a course, or maybe you want to have a membership, or maybe you want to teach or mentor. I mean, there's lots of different things, right, that you could do. Maybe your hobby is in graphic design and you want to have a graphic design business for people that are also realtors. There's lots. So that's you creating an ecosystem. You're being a realtor is just one part of that, but it all has to work together. So it's looking, like I said, at the bigger picture. And if you create your own brand, that's when you actually really start to create, your own business that then you can grow and roll with.
And that's exactly it. Like, I mean, as real estate agents, like, we wear so many different hats. I mean, we're not just a real estate agent. We're also, a home inspector and a appraiser and a babysitter and a marriage counselor, like going through the whole process with our clients. We do so much more than just, open a door and show them a house. Yes, like you say, yes. It's an entire ecosystem. So I can see, how your branding becomes like a ripple effect, and it's kind of everywhere in everything that you do. And you're exactly right. It's about what people say when you're not in the room,
Exactly. And imagine if somebody goes to your website and they see, they get a kind of a certain feeling when they're reading your messaging, and the images have a certain feeling to them, and then maybe they go to your Facebook or your Twitter or your Pinterest or whatever it might be, and they're different. And again, this is where you start to lose, you'll lose people because it doesn't have that cohesion, and you have to build the brand. You can't just jump in. And I think one of the best tips I would give people in regards to when you really start to think about your brand, right, is that 95% of people probably make the mistake of they jump in at the end. So they jump in going, right, these are the colors that I like, and this is the name that I want, and this is the font that I like, and all of this. And it's not really, number one, necessarily about what you like per se, right?
Yes.
And number two, your visual, which is like, again, your colors and all of this kind of stuff, right? and your verbal ID are the last things you should create, because you have to actually build, you have to build the brand. So if you can think of it, so I think I've mentioned to you, so there's really sort of three kind of stages if you actually want to build a proper brand, right? One is sort of sensing, and that's where you're doing a lot of the research and, you know, and this kind of thing, right, into the market and the competitors and all of these kinds of things and your audience. The second is building, and that's where you're actually building kind of the core elements of the brand. And the third part, which is the connecting part, that's where you're looking at where those touch points are. So that's where you get into the verbal part of the brand or the visual part of the brand. But those have to be built last, because how are you going to write messaging that's going to connect and really get somebody to want to come, you know, and have you show their house, or have them, you know, put their house up, to trust you to come and do that, not only from a point of view of, right, this stranger is going to be in my house, but that you're going to be able to show them, I'm going to do the best that I can for them. You know, how are you going to know what their triggers are that's going to make them, you know, on that emotive level? You're not, unless you've done the, you know, the foundational work. And this is, and people, like I said, a lot of times just jump in, and again, you would see disconnect sometimes because of that.
I see. So what would you say, like, what would be the top sort of 3 things to do for, say, either a brand new realtor coming in the industry, or maybe a realtor that wants to now stand alone from their office, kind of starting the branding process from the beginning? Where would they start? Do you have any tips or tools or apps or websites, or like, what's the easiest way for them to kind of get started?
Really, one of the best tips that I would be able to give anybody, but especially, again, somebody kind of in the unique kind of industry that you're in, right, is that, and this is one of the key benefits that a brand will give you. When people think of positioning, a lot of times they think of positioning via the product or the service, you know, things of that nature, right? But you have brand positioning, and the fantastic thing about brand positioning is it can be whatever it is you need to make it. So you can have the same exact people having the exact same product, but you can create very unique brand positioning that will completely set you apart from everybody else selling the exact same thing, living right next door to you.
So basically kind of like niching down, getting like super specific.
Yeah, well, you can niche, but niching comes more, niching's more your audience, right? So positioning is more like how you're going to position yourself in the market. So I'll give you an example. So I might go, right, for us as a brand, you know, maybe you want to be luxury, or maybe you want to, you know, where's your brand going to say? Is it a luxury brand? You know, is it a rebellious brand? So you have all of these different, and you can create all these different matrices, right? Where you're looking at the opposites. So, you know, cheap, expensive, you know, is it strong? Is it good value? Is it, you know, all of these different things? Is it very serious brand? You know, maybe you specialize in, you know, very high-end properties for single businessmen. Do you know what I mean? There's all different, obviously all different kinds. So they're going to have very particular needs, right?
Right.
As maybe people who are families that, you know, maybe, do you know what I mean, that travel a lot or something like that, or that are emigrating or something like that, are going to have very different needs than to a single businessman, right? So looking at how you can position your brand to give you unique elements that you want to bring in, and then once you have those, it's aligning the market with those, if you know what I mean. So it's not going after the market first, it's doing your positioning first. So really, that's really where you want to start and think is, right.
So like I was saying, kind of figuring out what your niche is or who you want to work with, and then creating your brand around that, like you say, you know, your messaging and what they're looking for and what they're wanting will have a direct influence as, you know, how your brand will end up looking. Like you say, if you're wanting to go in the luxury market, you're not going to have a, you know, funny, you know, kind of
orange, easy.
yeah. You want maybe more gold tones and navy blues, and, you know, to appeal to that, you know, that type of market. So yeah, so okay, so kind of figuring out who you want to you know, work with, or your ideal client is, and then building your brand kind of around that.
Yeah. So you can start there, and you can also, like, you can start with the ideal client that you want to work with and try and build it around that way. If you're in a really crowded market, though, you know, I would encourage, you know, your viewers to really try and, like I said, think outside of the box, and look at what everybody else is doing from a brand perspective, and see where the gaps are, because that's where you're going to find unique positioning. So if your ideal client is X, but everybody else wants X as well, you're not going to stand out in any kind of way. So you stand out by having unique positioning, unique brand positioning. So that's really what's going to allow you to stand apart.
So how would a person like myself, I can be like, sometimes I'm terrible when it comes to brainstorming, like you say, looking at your competition and figuring out where the gaps are. Do you have any kind of exercise or tips or something like that to kind of open up our minds and trying to, like, how do you figure out those gaps, like, without, you know, phoning that realtor and saying, hey, what's not working in your business?
Yes, exactly.
You know, how
well,
you know,
doing research is really, really important, and that's part of the sensing, right? Speak to people, even people that have maybe not worked with you. You know, ask them why, ask them what, you know, what is it they were looking for, you know, why is it they didn't want, you know, why didn't they choose you to be their realtor, etc., etc., why didn't they buy from you? So do research stuff, and you can do it online, but face-to-face is also very good, or over the telephone. Again, if you want to try and look at positioning and find unique brand positioning, you can start from a very basic point of saying, right, okay, so what brands, what realtor brands are out there that are luxury, right? Is there any that would have kind of a luxury, you know, kind of feel to them, and that would be kind of the brand essence that they would put out? And then you want to look at the opposite. So then you would go, right, on the other end, you know, where's the, you know, the inexpensive realtors come in, because obviously that's their positioning, right? Yeah. And then you go from left to right, and you would pick two different ones. So you might go, right, well, where's one that's whatever, you know, a different unique positioning might be. So maybe it's only local, maybe, you know, it only works with local families, and maybe, like I said, the other one works with ones that's all about travel, right? So opposite poles. So you want to kind of have like a, you know, a cross map. So you mind map it, and it'll start to let you see, and you can do lots of these, you know, as many as you can kind of think of ideally, and it'll let you start to see gaps. So you might find lots of areas where there's lots of inexpensive people that do local stuff, but maybe not inexpensive for traveling families, or, you know, or people, you know, emigrating or things of that nature. So if you do lots and lots and lots of these, it might seem a bit tedious, but I guarantee you it'll help you find, you know, holes in the market where, you know, you can fill from a brand positioning.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That kind of makes, I can see that working, like how, you know, starting from sort of the low end to the high end and going a little bit in between, to kind of fill the gaps. Cause I know, like, people talk about that and stuff, but it's like, well, how do you figure out what the gaps are for somebody like myself who is brainstorming can be overwhelming, and I know it can be overwhelming for people. And you know, you talk to realtors and you ask them questions about, like, what they want to do or who they want to serve, and they're like, well, I don't know, I just want a paycheck, you know. And unfortunately, you know, being like you say, being the same or being vanilla, like it just doesn't work. You have to, in today's landscape with being online and in social media, you really need to learn how to stand out and figuring out what those gaps are, like you said, and filling those gaps. So, I mean, I think that's fantastic advice. And for somebody that's, you know, wanting to rebrand or starting out, I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, and just you know, go on and research, look at your competitors, and just start making a list of all the different traits that you would see, you know, that's going on, you know, all the different things that you see. Make a note of buzzwords or keywords, you know, that people talk about when they talk about the agency that you would work for or competitors. Start collecting all of this information, and then you can start to matrix it, you know, just to work out, you know, where, like I said, the gaps in the market are.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure if you're able to speak on this or not. I might be putting you on the spot. Hopefully not. And if I am, I totally apologize. When it comes to social media marketing
Mhm.
and branding, any sort of tips or advice on, what real estate agents can do to kind of keep that cohesiveness between their brand or making their brand stick out? Is there anything that you see kind of working out there that realtors can adapt, or any sort of advice when it comes to social media marketing and branding with real estate agents?
Yeah, well, what I would say is create what we would call a brand board, right? And in fact, there's actually a couple of resources I can send you some links to. So one of them is looking at kind of a free masterclass for creating a brand season. So that might be very good because it looks at your colors,
Yeah.
fonts, your texture. So there's 4 seasons really, for a brand, and each one has different elements that kind of fit, would fit alongside that. Um, Create a brand board. So use Canva. Canva's great. It's free. They even have free templates you can use. And it's brilliant for going and having a play. So the 2 best tips I would give about sort of visuals for social media, and when you are at the stage for creating visuals and things of this nature and looking at colors, is number 1, create a brand board, or some people would call it a mood board. So you want to put your color palette on it, some examples of images, your primary font, your secondary font, things of that nature. But also test, and again, this is where Canva's brilliant. Actually go and create posts, because colors will look very nice, all in a nice line, but when you actually go to use them, sometimes they don't work well together.
Right.
Now,
Or people don't respond
also,
to them really well, or they respond to them not well.
well, this is again, but see, and it's all about balance. So see, when you have a brand, it's all about balance, right? So if I am saying, for instance, with us, we have a really heavy font. We're a winter brand, right? We have a very heavy font for our primary font. That needs to be lightened with some of the color palette that we have, even though it's still winter. And there's a reason for every single element, whether it's our icon, the font for the strap line, everything all fits to balance
Yeah.
to, give the feeling and the vibe, basically, if you will, that we want, right? And that our audience will connect with. So, your realtors need to do exactly the same thing. So even if it's their name, and it's, Jennifer Kieran's Realty, then I still have to put that across in a way that, is going to be appealing to you, with colors that's going to appeal to you as my market, that's going to also tie in with my brand core. So say, for instance, I'm saying I'm very honest, I might not necessarily want to use the color orange. That's why you see a lot of financial and insurance people wear blues, your typical honesty,
Oh,
trustworthy.
interesting. I love the meanings kind of behind colors, which we haven't really touched upon today, because I'm sure it's like a whole other subject. But
Yeah.
you know, and and why McDonald's has been successful year after year after year,
Because
because
yellow's a very happy color. See, there you
yeah,
go. So,
yeah.
and
So
also, it's a food color. It makes you want to eat.
that's
Yes.
crazy, because yeah, that's funny.
Which is why you always say, I'm taking the kids to McDonald's, but I'm not going to get anything. And as soon as you walk in the door, there's like, right, I'll have a fry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I know. And it's interesting because it's worked for them for so many years. And yeah, that's interesting. So well, thank you so much. You've given us kind of lots to think about. Any kind of last minute tips or pieces of advice, or anything that you want to share with our real estate industry?
Yeah, I think really, like I said, I think the best thing I could say to them is to really take the time. If you're going to invest so much time and energy, and I'm sure money, into trying to really build this up and become the best realtor you can, why not build a business? Right?
Yes.
Why not do the foundational work? And yes, it might take you a little bit longer now, but honestly, it's yours then, and you'll have it, to take with you no matter what happens. So it's even a
Yes.
legacy, you can get from family and friends involved. You can leave it to your kids, because it's a business, it's a brand, and nobody can take that off of you then, which is the brilliant thing.
That's right. You won't be in the position that I was, where your franchise all of a sudden decided to change franchises, or your office decided to change franchises. And there you go. You're left with the expense of having to change everything. So like I say, at that point, that's when I was like, nope, it's going to be about me. And then that way I've got the freedom and flexibility if they were to ever do something like that. Or if I wanted to change offices down the road, I didn't, say something else opened up that I wanted, where I wanted to go, and then you don't have to change all of that. So
it gives you options. It gives you options, and it gives you that control, like you said earlier.
Yes. Definitely. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us today and giving us your brilliant advice. If you don't mind, sending along your link to some more information, that would be fantastic. I will also send that out to everybody. And if you're looking to, either start your brand or rebrand, listen to what Jennifer has to say. She's an expert at it. She's been doing it for a long time, and also have fun with it. So thanks again so much, Jennifer, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, all the best. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.